evening, and welcome to the 2020 Gilson Middle School Sound Perspectives Red Carpet Premiere. I'm Sherry Beck, and I'll be your MC for this very special event. Tonight, we celebrate the success of a 6th grade iMovie project that pushed students to the max. Not only was the subject matter challenging, the technical and creative skills rigorous, but the COVID-19 virus closed school right smack in the middle of the process. Tonight, we happily share the success of this interdisciplinary science project and Seed Media Camp training with you. First, we'll hear from the teachers that persevered, encouraged, and connected with their students and parents. And then we'll announce the top 5 videos selected for the 2020 Seed Media Choice Awards. Without further ado, please welcome Gilson Middle School Principal Rod Morrison.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. On behalf of Gilson Middle School, I'd like to welcome you all to the Red Carpet Premiere. GMS is very fortunate to have a wonderful teacher staff that are willing to take on a project like this, like Ms. Keller and Mrs. Norris have done for the past couple of years. I appreciate everybody's hard work. We've got some wonderful technology skills in our school, and we are blessed to have a community that supports projects like this. To tell you a little bit more about the project is Mrs. Ann Norris.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for that kind introduction. The goal of the Sound Perspectives project is for students to learn how the health of the environment in Valdez is uniquely intertwined with our history and culture, particularly as it relates to the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill. The context of the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill provides an excellent backdrop for study of marine pollution in the local area. Students learn the story, the impact on the community, the people involved, and what we can learn to prevent a similar event. Sound Perspectives is a culminating project. Each student is required to produce a 2-minute video on the topic of their choice within the parameters of impact on communities and health, impact on the environment or wildlife, and impact on technology. Seed Media provides professional digital media instruction to help students produce their movies. The project integrated science, history, reading, writing, public speaking, digital production, career readiness, and technology skills. That's a tall list 6th graders rose to the challenge. They are the heroes. Students missed 2 edit days due to weather closure. On top of all of that, COVID-19 closure forced the 2 makeup days to be online. Thanks to Seed Media, who went right with us into distance learning mode, and some very resilient students, projects are complete. Working side by side with me on grant writing and organization of the Sound Perspectives project is my teaching partner, Kim Keller. Mrs. Keller and I have the privilege of teaching the 6th grade students at GMS. Please join me in welcoming Kim Keller.
Valdez City Schools' mission is schools, parents, and community united in education for life, instructing, inspiring, and empowering every student in a safe environment. I'd like to take a moment to recognize those in our community that contributed to the success of this iMovie documentary project. Donors that gave money, and we have donors that gave of their time and knowledge. Without either of these, our 6th grade class would not have had this unique learning experience. A big thank you to Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, and Copper Valley Telecom for your monetary donations. Thank you, Valdez City Schools, for providing our students with top-of-the-line technology and tech support. Thank you also for budgeting resources to supplement the program, such as bus transportation to the museum and Kelsey Dock. A big shout out to the Valdez Museum staff, Faith Ravel and Andrew Goldstein, for being guest speakers, building background and knowledge for our students, and for editing scripts for accuracy. I'd like to thank the staff at Seed Media for providing this digital camp for our 6th grade students. We appreciate your countless hours dedicated to making this learning experience a memorable one. And last, Thank you, parents, for encouraging your child through this process. Thank you all for uniting with us.
Thank you, Mrs. Keller. This project had a wonderful team of people behind it, as you can clearly see, from top-notch teachers and instructors to community partnerships, all working together for student achievement and growth. And now, it's the time we've all been waiting for, the announcement of this year's winners of the 2020 Seed Media Choice Awards. The top 5 videos from the entire 6th grade class have been selected for recognition. Seed Media carefully watched each video that was submitted. We debated and discussed our top 10 and then whittled it down to the top 5. The criteria included the project scoring rubric used to grade the projects and the professional eye of the Seed Media team. It was a very difficult decision, but we feel we have chosen 5 excellent iMovies for the Seed Media Choice Awards this year. Announcing the awards will be the 5 members of the Seed Media team. The awards will be announced in no particular order. To start the awards presentation, I'd like to introduce Seed Media's tech specialist, Levi Rowland.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Our first award goes to a student whose video focused on the oil spill's impact to sea otters. From start to finish, this student put in the work to create a video that was enjoyable to watch and informative to the viewer. Our first Seed Media 2020 Choice Award goes to Destiny Day.
Do you ever wonder how they saved some of the otters and how many died? Lots of otters died during the oil spill, and they had become endangered, but their population has now increased rapidly.
It was probably a few years because it wasn't, they weren't all found. Some weren't as bad as others, so it took a while. Those that were lightly oiled were into just different hiding places, and so the ones that were really bad, they got cleaned up right away. But it was a couple years before all the ones that were even minorly oiled were taken care of.
Otters were hit hard, and it had a large effect on their population. The population of sea otters decreased during the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill on March 24, 1989. 2,800 sea otters died from the crude oil. Some of them are very lucky to have survived the oil spill, let alone to also survive all the hunters. Otters are now thriving after all the harsh conditions they had to deal with. The oil that got into the otter's body had lots of health effects. Crude oil rapidly penetrates the fur and eliminates the air layer and is trapped next to the skin, which provides 70% of the insulation properties of their fur. This can lead to being very cold or hypothermic.
Well, I know that there was hundreds and hundreds of them that were actually saved because they were contaminated in oil.
They can also get anemia, which is an iron deficiency, as well as go into shock or have seizures, and can cause hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. Even though there are many health effects, sea otters have made a great comeback. As part of the oil spill cleanup, Exxon made a hospital to help otters and other animals recover from the oil spill. They cleaned the animals with Dawn because they offered to help with the incident. The population of Valdez went from 3,000 to over 10,000, either to help save marine life or to make money off of it. Valdez and other communities made lots of effort to help otters and other marine wildlife. Otters were hit hard, and it had a large effect on their population. Although the oil spill seemed all bad, after all, the sea otters are now thriving. Prince William Sound is all mostly picked up, but you can still find oil if you dig deep enough into the beaches.
Presenting our next award is Jeremy Gauman, Seed Media's Director of Photography.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. This student produced an enjoyable video to watch, listen, and learn. It answered the why, how, and what happened after questions about the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and highlighted positive oil spill prevention initiatives that resulted from the tragedy. It was also edited with good pacing, B-roll, and narration. With that said, I'm happy to announce Braden Williams, a 2020 Seed Media Choice Award.
Oil response boats and techniques have improved since the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Barges now have 2 tugboats to guide it through the port, and oil response teams practice drills 3 times a year. Overall, the oil business in Valdez is much more cautious and prepared for oil spills than they were during the Exxon spill.
Tugs were used as support vessels as well, and they didn't have to have as many back then, and even the tanker lanes and so forth.
Barges hardly had any tugboats to guide them when the Exxon hit Bly Reef. In fact, the first responders to the crash were ordinary fishermen and passing barges. Organized oil crews didn't arrive until after the oil had spread to beaches and further along the coast. Oil response teams are now trained and prepared to arrive at an oil spill and contain the oil. In the spring, they even teach commercial fishermen how to respond to an oil spill. Many new laws have been passed to prevent another oil spill from being as bad as the Exxon spill. Since the spill, SERVS has formed and works to train oil spill teams so that even if there is another spill, Valdez would be prepared to contain and collect the oil. A Citizens Advisory Council also formed to, quote, monitor, review, and provide advice on oil spill prevention, end quote.
One of the best ways that we think to prevent an oil spill is having two tugboats right next to the tanker.
So in the long run, the Exxon oil spill helped to teach and inform the people of Alaska about the real dangers of oil spills. I believe this is why Valdez is much more prepared and trained to clean up an oil spill.
The next presenter is Sherry Beck, Seed Media Discovery Specialist.
Thank you, Mr. Gauman. The next award goes to a student that demonstrated excellent writing skills on his script. His iMovie used the perfect wildlife clips to match his narration, and his interview selections supported the material he showcased. The entire movie was well organized and creative. Please help me in congratulating Ezra Belknap for the 2020 Seed Media Choice Awards.
The Exxon Valdez oil spill was a very tragic event in 1989. 11 million gallons of crude oil spilled. The oil spread 1,300 miles along the coast of what was pristine wilderness. The oil affected a lot of things. The animals were really affected by the spill. There were so many animals that got harmed or died. People tried to clean as many animals as they could, but most of the animals didn't survive.
The Otter Rescue Center, and they may have done some birds there too, I can't remember for sure, but she would leave our place and walk a block, is all it was, to the college, and she'd work all day on the Otter, and some days she'd come home and she'd be very sad. because a lot of them had died. They couldn't save.
It was very sad that all the animals couldn't get cleaned and taken care of. Whales were really affected because whales depend on fish and other marine animals that got affected. Like other predators, they depend on their prey. The birds depended on the fish. It was hard for the birds to get food. They had to go down to the water and swipe a fish with their mouth. With the oil in the water, the birds would have to go into the oil, and the oil would get all over the bird, and then the bird would get hurt or die. Birds and other animals ingested the oil by trying to clean themselves, which poisoned them.
Everything from the bottom of the food chain up, and the bottom of the food chain would be the zooplankton and phytoplankton that salmon and herring, all the small animals feed on. Those were affected, then the larger animals became affected. It also affected the reproductive ability of fish like herring. It also made them sick, so that they got, or made them weak, so they became susceptible to viruses and got sick.
About 254,000 animals died, not including the billions of herring and salmon eggs that were affected or killed. Sadly, the fish had a big collapse. The eggs are the next generation of herring and salmon. There were a lot of streams where all the salmon were, and all the streams were affected in the sound. The oil caused the fish to not be able to swim fast due to heart problems. The food chains wouldn't work out so well with all the affected animals. It was very sad and challenging for the animals. We now have training, so we are more prepared. We will do our best to make sure that never happens again. We'll make sure the wildlife is safe and happy.
Presenting our fourth award is co-founder of Seed Media and director, Jorge Arcienega.
Thank you, Sherry. Before I present the next award, I really want to recognize all the students and their hard work in these difficult times. The next student presented a video that was a really clear message about the impacts of the oil spill in the Prince William Sound. So without further ado, our fourth 2020 Seed Media Choice Award goes to Jamie Kegik.
On March 24th, 1989 at 12:04 a.m. around 11 million gallons of crude oil spilled into Prince William Sound. It stretched from Valleys all the way to Kodiak. It covered roughly 1,300 miles of shoreline. Still, after over 30 years, you can still find oil on beaches from around that area. The oil floated on the surface of the water. The environment was strongly affected. Rocks got coated in oil, and oil soaked into the ground, making it hard for a full cleanup to happen. It took a while for the water and land to get cleaned. It was scary. The workers didn't know if the area was going to get better. Oil was still pouring out of the tanker. It was a thick black substance that was very difficult to clean. Oil repels water, making the stress levels of the workers even higher.
Taken care of. Well, when it first happened, it was a complete disaster, and there was oil, even though it was 25 miles out, it actually came into the harbor of Valdez and bringing the contamination and everything, and it was...
The affected area is mostly cleaned, but there are still some places that weren't fully restored. Besides the oil being hard to clean, it also smelled terrible and it affected people's lungs. The oil hurt their environment in many ways. Sometimes the oil sank down to the ocean floor. Plants on the coastline also got covered, making the plants very unhealthy. 250,000 barrels of oil was dangerous for the ocean and land. When the oil came into the water, it went out 25 miles away from the tanker, but because of the current, oil crashed back into the shore, covering land and rocks.
Well, the oil spill spread, first it was just around Bly Island, which isn't too far from Valdez, and it stayed there for about 3 days, and then a storm kicked up, and it spread more than 800 miles southwest towards Kodiak and beyond towards the Aleutians. So it traveled almost 1,000 miles away from where it started here in Prince William Sound.
The oil went into the ground, and plant roots absorbed what was in the dirt. The plants died because of that. It took a while for the mess to be completely cleaned. The hole in the tanker wasn't patched yet, so oil just kept spilling into the ocean. It's been almost 31 years, and the environment still isn't the same.
To present the last award, I want to introduce my business partner and co-owner of Seed Media, Thomas Tapp.
Thank you, Mr. Arciniega, and good evening to all of you out there. I too want to say good job to all of the students who put in the hard work putting their videos together. So, the final award goes to a student who excelled in narrative storytelling, whose iMovie had a good blend of all the right elements, including historical information, interviews, B-roll, music, titles, and voiceover. Now, drum roll please, as I announce our final 2020 Seed Media Choice Award winner. Autumn Boone! Yeah, good job!
Crazy, said Mr. Arts. That was one word he used to explain what he thought of the oil spill on March 24th, 1989. The Exxon Valdez Oil Spill tanker ran aground. It crashed with 53 million gallons of Prudhoe Bay crude on board. 11 million gallons of crude oil poured into Prince William Sound. The community and the wildlife were hit hard, and thousands of animals died because of the spill. The fishing season was canceled because of the oil spill. Most of the fishermen had to go work the oil spill, and the ones that did not had to find other jobs. This caused lots of stress on people.
Because of the population went from under 4,000 to 15,000. And
the oil companies were throwing money at the problem, and some people failed to see the true impact of the spill.
We're going to do everything we can in a very active way to produce the results that we think need to be produced over the winter.
There. Everything shut down. When the fishing went away, the people whose lives depended on it had no income.
Part of just time. I think that's our biggest ally right now, is just time.
After the oil spill, Alaska Pipeline made SERVS, which stands for Ship Escort Response Vessel System. This, I believe, is one of the most positive things that came from the oil spill to protect our waters, the fisheries, and the communities in Prince William Sound. Without it, we could have improved not in our equipment or response system. In 1990, the government made a law mandating that all tankers had to have double hulls that came into Prince William Sound. Even though the spill was in 1989, Prince William Sound has not fully recovered. Additionally, there still is a threat of further spills and accidents. We need to put precaution in place to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Congratulations to the 2020 Seed Media Choice Award winners. Your hard work and perseverance has paid off. On behalf of the Seed Media Camp team, I'd like to say thank you to all the participants, teachers, parents, donors, and supporters of this project. We look forward to working with Gilson Middle School students again in the future. We'll close our red carpet premiere with a word from the Sound Perspective science teachers, Ann Norris and Kim Keller.
Again, students, we are so proud of you for sticking with it, being diligent, taking this project all the way to the end. We hope you have skills now that you can use in the future.
Well, sixth graders, you finished a big project this year. We hope that next year as seventh graders, you wow your teachers with all your new iMovie skills.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Good job.